Wish You Were Here. What's the story behind that song?
It's one of those strange songs that came to me very easily because David Gilmour had been playing the riff.
After years of waiting, one of the biggest rumors has been revealed. From how they started, the role he played, legal battles, controversies, and the album that finally led to the split.
That's always the connection with rock and roll and drugs. Like, this is like, that's the narrative.
Yeah.
Was that, in the early days of Pink Floyd, was that the case?
It wasn't really relevant.
Join us as we uncover the details as Roger Waters finally confirms the rumors about Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd was known as one of the most iconic bands. The founding members were Roger Waters, Nick Mason, and Richard Wright, who enrolled at the London Polytechnic at Regent Street on September 1962 to study architecture. Another founding band member was Syd Barrett, 2 years younger than the rest of the band, who had moved to London in 1964 to study at the Camberwell College of Arts. Roger Waters and Barrett were childhood friends, and on a few occasions, Waters often visited Barrett and watched him play guitar at Barrett's mother's house. By 1965, Pink Floyd had formed as an English rock band in London, and afterward, they were able to gain an early following as one of the first British groups. They became quite different from other bands due to their song compositions, lyrics, and live performances. It wasn't long after that they became a leading band of the progressive rock genre. During the time the band started, Syd Barrett was the guitarist and lead vocalist, alongside being the main songwriter, which led to the release of 2 hits titled Arnold Lane and See Emily Play, and the successful debut album The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Nick Mason was the one on the drums. Roger Waters was the bassist and also a vocalist, and Richard Wright, the keyboardist, who also joined in vocals. Tragically, Barrett left in 1968 due to his mental health condition, which was getting worse by the day. Following Barrett's departure, Waters became the primary lyricist and leader. During his time, he was able to bring about a few concepts that led to the band's most successful albums. Let's take a brief look at the role Roger Waters played in the band and how it all turned out. Over the years, following the departure of Barrett, Waters was able to drive the band to the point where they became recognized as music icons, aside from being the mastermind behind some of their most iconic albums. Some of these include The Dark Side of the Moon to the politically charged The Wall. There's no doubt that Waters' creativity and vision shaped the band's sound and identity for a long time. As the lead vocalist and bassist, he was a major driving force behind Pink Floyd's major successes. He was able to successfully push himself and the entire band into exploring new grounds in the music industry alongside different new musical styles. Roger Waters' deep love for music started very early in his life. He started playing the guitar at an early age when he was just 13 years old, showcasing his deep love and interest in pursuing a music career. Not long after that, he developed a passion for blues and rock. This deep passion was drawn as a form of inspiration from iconic artists like Muddy Waters and Chuck Berry. Despite achieving great success during his time at Pink Floyd, Waters became restless about remaining in the band by the late 1970s. Eventually, he decided to leave the band in 1985. Following his departure, Waters decided to embark on a successful solo career, which led to the release of several albums. These included The Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, which was released in 1984, Radio KAOS, which followed in 1987, then Is This the Life We Really Want, which was released in 2017. Before that time, in 2005, he also released Shah Era, an opera centered on the French Revolution, showcasing his great abilities as a composer. Alongside his studio work, Waters remained active through numerous tours and performances during his solo career. Throughout his career, Roger Waters was known as a passionate political activist. He was someone who always used his music as a platform to address various social and political issues. One of such topics that he has always made comments about and also used his music to talk about has been particularly in areas relating to global disputes and advocating for human rights, often leveraging his concerts to raise awareness and inspire action on these topics. Waters has remained active over the years in the music industry, and he has also been involved in tours and other performances while receiving widespread recognition for his contributions to the industry. As a part of his career achievements, multiple Grammy Awards, and his induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, These honors show just how his enduring influence and his status as one of the greatest songwriters and musicians of his generation have earned him so much. In 1990, Waters staged one of the largest rock concerts in history titled The Wall, Live in Berlin. This iconic concert attracted an audience of 450,000 people. Since 1999, he has also toured extensively as a solo artist, captivating audiences worldwide with his powerful music and thought-provoking performances. He performed The Dark Side of the Moon for his world tour of 2006 to 2008, and The Wall Live, his tour of 2010 to 2013, which turned out to be the highest-grossing tour by a solo artist at the time. As a person, Waters is well known to be someone who incorporates political themes in his work and is a prominent supporter of Palestine in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There's truly no doubt that Roger Waters has made his mark in the music industry as a true icon of rock music, both as a member of the iconic Pink Floyd and as a solo artist. But, come to think of it, what were some of the controversies and legal battles faced by Waters and the band that could have led to his leaving? Let's get into some of these details. Roger Waters' leadership phase in Pink Floyd recorded lots of other successes alongside the albums, one of which is the musical film based on The Wall, Pink Floyd, produced in 1982. It won 2 BAFTA awards. Aside from that, Pink Floyd also composed several film scores with The Committee 1968. Then, in 1969, they recorded the score for Barbet Schroeder's film, More. The soundtrack ended up being very beneficial to them. Not only did it pay well, but it also became a part of their legacy. By the break of 2013, Pink Floyd had sold more than 250 million records worldwide. This shows their position as one of the best-selling music artists of all time. Their albums, The Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall, were both inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. And aside from that, it was also recognized as 2 of the best-selling albums in history. In addition to these achievements, 4 Pink Floyd albums were also able to top the US Billboard 200, while 5 reached the top of the UK albums chart. Their iconic hit singles included Arnold Lane and See Emily Play, with both being released in 1967, as well as Money, which was released in 1973. Other notable tracks by the band included Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2, Not Now John, On the Turning Away, and High Hopes, among many others. By 1996, Pink Floyd was inducted into the US Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, followed by their induction into the UK Music Hall of Fame in 2005. A few years later, by 2008, the band was honored with the Polar Music Prize in Sweden for their significant contributions to modern music. By 1981, some personal tensions arose and Wright had to leave Pink Floyd. A few years later, by 1985, Roger Waters also left. At this point, Gilmour and Mason had to continue with the band as Pink Floyd, although Wright later rejoined the band again. During this period, they were able to produce the albums A Momentary Lapse of Reason and The Division Bell in 1987 and 1994, respectively. The successful release of these albums was backed by major tours. By the break of 2005, all former members of the band had reunited except for Barrett. Their reunion was specifically for a performance at the Live 8 Global Awareness event. Tragically, Barrett passed away in 2006, while Wright also passed away after 2 years, in 2008. The last Pink Floyd studio album that was released, titled The Endless River in 2014, was based on unreleased material from the Division Bell recording sessions. By 2022, Gilmour and Mason then decided to reform Pink Floyd to release the song Hey, Hey, Rise Up in protest of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Amid their creative differences, before this time, after Waters left the band in 1985, he began a legal dispute over the use of the band's name and material. This was in December 1985, when Waters issued a statement to EMI and CBS invoking the leaving member clause in his contract. Following that, by October 1986, he initiated high court proceedings to formally dissolve the Pink Floyd partnership. While all the drama and legal battle was going on, Gilmour and Mason opposed Waters' case and announced their intention to continue as Pink Floyd. According to the filings from Waters, he claimed that he had been forced to resign like Barrett was forced to resign years earlier. And as such, in his case, he decided to leave the band based on legal considerations, saying that if he hadn't, the financial repercussions would have wiped him and his career out completely. Well, there have been rumors over the years following the legal battles between Waters and the remaining members of the band that he did not want the band to use the name Pink Floyd without him. It was recorded that he later used the case to give instances saying that he would be somehow if Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr made records and went on the road calling themselves the Beatles. He made mention of this in a bid to describe the situation on ground. Aside from that, he went further to mention that if John Lennon's not in it, then it's totally wrong. He also continued by saying that for Gilmour and Mason to get in a whole bunch of other people to write the material seems to him as an insult to the work that came before and to the legacy of the band. By December 1987, Waters and Pink Floyd reached an agreement. Finally, by the agreement reached, Waters was released from his contract with O'Rourke, and he retained the copyrights to the wall concept and the inflatable animals pig. During an interview in 2005, Waters mentioned that the period of his departure had been a bad, negative time, and that he regretted his part in all of the conflict, emphasizing on the fact that it wasn't right for him to try to impose his feelings about the work and what it was worth on the others if they didn't feel the same way, admitting that he was totally wrong in attempting to do that. In another instance in 2013, he mentioned that he regretted the lawsuit he filed and had failed to appreciate that the Pink Floyd name had commercial value independent of the band members. Waters' legal battles with the remaining members of the band was to prevent them, Gilmour and Mason, from recording or performing as Pink Floyd. Although he mentioned that it was wrong to sue them, he also went ahead to mention that leaving the band wasn't wrong still. According to Waters, he termed his decision of leaving the band the right thing to do so that he could express his ideas and creative talents freely. Aside from all of the rumors, what exactly was the reason Roger Waters decided to leave the band Pink Floyd? After the legal battle between the remaining members of the band and Roger Waters was resolved, Waters during an interview was asked about the actual reason why the band had to split, and the shocking revelations he made has brought light to the secrets that occurred behind the scenes. Among all the members of the band Pink Floyd, Nick Mason is Pink Floyd's longtime drummer and the only member of the band to play on each and every one of the albums. Aside from that, he remains the only member who always opposed breaking up. In 2018, during an interview, Mason mentioned that it is an odd thing in his opinion, but for him, he thinks the problem is that Roger doesn't really respect David Gilmour. While speaking, he mentioned that Roger feels that writing is everything and that guitar playing and the singing are something that should be secondary and that everything should be judged on the writing rather than the playing. Mason went ahead to mention that from his own end, he actually gets along with both of them, and he feels so disappointed knowing that as elderly as they are still involved in their little conflicts. In one instance, Roger Waters came forth to mention that his former bandmate David Gilmour banned him from promoting his solo work and endeavors on Pink Floyd's website and social media channels. Waters brought this to the notice of the public in a video that he posted to his YouTube channel. While making all of the claims, he went ahead to make his allegation after noting that he had to post a socially distanced version of the song Mother on his own YouTube channel, bitterly stating that nothing from him is on the website, and how he was banned by David Gilmour from the website. He then said that on a few occasions, he has asked for website access in the past during some of their reconciliation talks with the surviving Pink Floyd members. According to him, one of the things that he asked for was for the 30 million subscribers the band have on their web page to be accessible to every one of them, since it was as a result of the body of work that the five of them, Barrett, Wright, himself, Mason, and Gilmour, created, and the efforts they all contributed into the group was what produced such results over the years. As a result, he expects that it would be fair and correct if they should all have equal access to it all and be able to share their projects on the platforms. However, according to him, David Gilmour thinks he owns it, and probably because he had to leave the band in 1985, Gilmour now feels he owns Pink Floyd, and that him, Waters at this point, is irrelevant and should keep his mouth shut. After the legal battle between the remaining members of the band and Roger Waters was resolved, Waters during an interview revealed the details. According to Waters, the album The Dark Side of the Moon released in 1973, which brought timeless classics like Time and The Great Gig on the Sky. When asked why he believes The Dark Side of the Moon was the nail in the coffin for Pink Floyd, in response, he mentioned that, of course, the album, Dark Side of the Moon, ultimately put an end to Pink Floyd. He went further to emphasize on the fact that achieving that level of success is every band's goal, and once a band has been able to successfully reach that end, somehow that's the end point, it's over. According to Waters, he also mentioned that in hindsight, he thinks that Pink Floyd had been done for a long time, even before the actual split. From his perspective, he believes that the immense success of the album, The Dark Side of the Moon, and their ability to realize their musical dreams were what actually led to their breakup. Commenting on how good the album was, he described how that particular album was incredibly well balanced and well constructed in almost every aspect one can view it from, both dynamically and musically. He believes that the album's ability to touch different aspects of human nature is something truly appealing and fulfilling. According to him, The Dark Side of the Moon was the first album of its kind. People often mention the pretty things. SF Sorrow was a similar work with so much quality compared to it, although he mentioned that both were recorded in the same studio around the same time. But he feels that particular album was probably the first album of its kind that was ever made. According to Roger Waters, for Pink Floyd, the creation and release of The Dark Side of the Moon marked both the peak and the turning point of their career. While the album's groundbreaking production and themes was able to take their status to another level and also created a mark in the industry till date where they are recognized as rock legends, it also brought underlying tensions within the band to the surface. Some of these tensions, which had been building up for years, were triggered by the overwhelming pressure and expectations that accompanied their newfound success through the album. Waters' deep reflections on the album's legacy highlight just how much impact that album had on the music industry. He went further to note that when one creates something that connects so deeply with people, it becomes larger than life. For Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon wasn't just an album or just one of those albums. It was a cultural phenomenon. But the sad part of it is that with that iconic piece comes a sense of finality, or better still, an arrival mentality or peak point. The big question then for the band was, how do they follow up on something that has been universally hailed as a masterpiece? This sense of arrival, according to Waters, made it very difficult for the band to find common ground to keep working together creatively. The sudden success of the album triggered a whole different type of emotion that they have never experienced and ended up making any existing disagreements they've had in the past worse. For Waters, the band had achieved everything they set out to do, and as humans, the feeling of finality changes people. All of a sudden, the shared vision that brought them together was no longer enough to keep them moving forward as a band. At this point, it was quite obvious that success definitely has a way of showing people's differences. Despite the fact that the legendary album led to the band's end, as Waters has mentioned, the album The Dark Side of the Moon no doubt remains a testament to Pink Floyd's collective genius. The album's exploration of universal themes such as time, mortality, and mental health continues to resonate with listeners across generations. Aside from that, their ability to make use of studio techniques was able to set a new standard for the music industry, influencing countless artists and shaping the rock music industry. According to Waters, the album wasn't just about the music, it was about the message. T was an attempt by the band to make sense of the human experience, to confront the struggles and joys that define lives. The quality of the album makes it a timeless piece, and that's why it still connects with fans till date, as it is not tied to a specific time or place. The creation of The Dark Side of the Moon was a very deep process that tested the band's limits. The members of Pink Floyd poured all of their hearts and souls into the album, pushing the boundaries of their creativity and technical abilities. However, there's no doubt that the intense pressure to deliver groundbreaking work also took a toll on their relationships. The long hours in the studio, coupled with the weight of their ambitions, was able to completely create an environment that was fully ripe for conflict. Waters acknowledged this by stating that when one is working on something as legendary as the album, The Dark Side of the Moon, the stakes are very high, and as such, every decision feels extremely important, and that can lead to lots of tension. Admitting to the fact that they all had strong personalities and differing opinions, which sometimes clashed in the heat of the moment. But those clashes were also part of what made the album so powerful considering the fact that the album was a product of their collective passion and determination to release something timeless. The band's subsequent project, such as Wish You Were Here, showed just how much the band members were growing apart. Aside from that, Waters' push to lead the band, especially when it comes to their creative process, further affected his relationship with most of the bandmates, particularly David Gilmour. These tensions were ultimately the reasons why Waters had to leave the band. While reflecting on this period, Waters mentioned that somehow, looking back, he feels they all knew that things were changing just after their hit with The Dark Side of the Moon. The album was able to mark the start of a new chapter for Pink Floyd, one where their individual ambitions began to overshadow their collective vision. And to him, this aspect of their career and them splitting was an inevitable part of their journey. As Waters reflects on the album's legacy, he was able to acknowledge the bittersweet nature of the album's success, such that while it brought the band so much recognition and success, it also showed how fragile their bond of unity was. Yet, for everything that played out following the release of the album, it still stands as a proof as to how much teamwork can produce and the enduring magic of music. According to Waters, in the end, it's the music that matters. Dark Side of the Moon was their greatest achievement, and he's so proud of what they were able to accomplish together. The album is a part of who they are, and it always will be. It's their rise and fall. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.